Vietnam has over 40,000 Buddhist temples. Every single one of them has been cooking vegan food longer than your favorite plant-based restaurant has existed. Let that sit. This isn't a trend. This isn't a lifestyle movement with a hashtag. This is centuries of tradition, discipline, and flavor, built into the DNA of an entire culture. While the West was discovering oat milk, Vietnam was perfecting pho chay, a broth so deep and fragrant with star anise, charred ginger, and slow-cooked vegetables, it makes you question everything. 10 dishes, all local, all real. And the one sitting at number 1? Tourists walk past it every single day. Subscribe to Traveling and Eating. Passport to flavor never does boring food. The Buddhist tradition behind An Chay. Why this isn't a trend. Vietnam is the third largest Buddhist country on Earth, and twice every lunar month, millions of locals stop eating meat entirely. Not for a diet, not for a trend. For centuries of spiritual practice that accidentally created one of the greatest vegan food cultures on the planet. Nobody talks about this. Vietnam has practiced plant-based eating for over 2,000 years. The West discovered veganism last Tuesday. Every travel channel covers pho bo and banh mi with pork. Meanwhile, the vegan version of that same pho, broth dark and smoky with charred ginger, star anise, and cinnamon, ladled over silky rice noodles and fresh herbs, has been sitting on street corners across Hanoi and Saigon since before your grandfather was born. An Chay isn't a substitute, it's the original. Twice a month, on the 1st and 15th of the lunar calendar, millions of Vietnamese locals eat completely plant-based. Not because an app told them to, because their grandmothers did. These aren't watered-down versions of Vietnamese classics. These are the real dishes, built from the ground up with zero meat, zero egg, and zero apology. 10 dishes, all local, all daily, all criminally underrated. And the one at the top of this list costs less than $1 and will permanently ruin every vegan meal you eat back home. Stay until the end, because dish number 1 isn't what anyone expects. Dish number 10, Goi Kwun Chai, fresh spring rolls done right. The fresh spring roll is one of the most copied street foods on Earth. Every version you've eaten outside Vietnam has been lying to you. Goi Kwun Chai is the plant-based original, and it isn't trying to impress anyone. Thin rice paper, soaked just long enough to turn soft and pliable, wrapped tight around vermicelli noodles, crunchy bean sprouts, shredded carrots, fresh mint, and Thai basil. No cooking, no oil, no heat. Just ingredients clean enough to see through the wrapper. The dipping sauce is where it gets serious. Hoisin and peanut sauce, rich, nutty, slightly sweet, cut with a squeeze of fresh lime and a whisper of chili. Every vendor has a slightly different ratio. Every regular has a strong opinion about whose is better. This is street food that has been eaten as a daily snack, a light lunch, and a late afternoon fix across Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City for generations. No fire needed, no technique required, just balance. And Vietnamese food has always understood balance better than anyone. At under $1 a roll, it is one of the most honest bites on this entire list. Dish number 9, Soi Chay, the sticky rice locals grab before dawn. Street food vendors in Vietnam start selling before the sun comes up. By 9 a.m., the best ones are already gone. Soi Chay is why. Glutinous sticky rice, steamed low and slow until every grain swells and clings together, topped with mung bean paste, fried shallots, and a drizzle of rich scallion oil that soaks into the rice like it was always meant to be there. Some vendors fold in pandan leaf, turning the rice a deep, fragrant green with a subtle floral sweetness that hits somewhere between vanilla and fresh-cut grass. Others layer in coconut milk, making the rice glossy, rich, and dangerously easy to finish. This is breakfast for millions of Vietnamese locals who don't have time for a sit-down meal and don't need one. Wrapped in banana leaf or packed into a small styrofoam box, soi chae is grabbed from a cart, eaten standing up, and finished before the motorbike engine warms up. No fork, no table, no ceremony. Just ancient carb energy wrapped in a leaf, and a flavor so clean and honest, it makes every Western breakfast trend look exhausting. Under 50 cents, gone by morning. Dish number 8, banh mi chae, the vegan baguette nobody talks about. Vietnam took a French colonial baguette, made it better, and then made a vegan version that outperforms the original. That is not a small thing. Banh mi chae starts with the same crackling, thin-crusted baguette, light inside, shatteringly crispy outside, that Vietnam has been perfecting. Then it gets filled. Crispy fried tofu, pickled daikon and carrots, sharp and vinegary, cutting through every rich bite. Fresh cucumber slices, cilantro and spring onion piled high. A smear of chili sauce that brings just enough heat to make you pay attention. Every ingredient earns its place. Every bite hits 4 things at once: crunch, acid, heat, and freshness. No meat needed, no apology required. Banh mi chae vendors set up before sunrise across Hanoi and Saigon. Office workers grab one on the way in. Students eat one between classes. Locals who observe An Chae days know exactly which cart does it right, and they go back every single time. The West spent years trying to make vegan fast food taste good. Vietnam solved it decades ago on a street corner for 30 cents. Dish number 7, cơm chae, the daily rice plate that feeds a nation. Rice feeds 3.5 billion people every single day. In Vietnam, it isn't just a side dish, it is the entire conversation. Cơm chae is the plant-based rice plate that has been anchoring Vietnamese lunch counters, market stalls, and family tables for generations. And most tourists walk straight past it without a second glance. Their loss. A mound of steamed jasmine rice, fragrant, slightly sticky, perfectly cooked, surrounded by rotating dishes that change by vendor, by region, and by season. Braised tofu lacquered in caramelized soy and garlic. Rau mung sao toi, water spinach flash-fried with garlic until the leaves wilt and the stems stay crisp. A small bowl of clear vegetable broth on the side, light and clean, cutting through every rich bite. This is not a substitution plate. This is the plate. Built from ingredients that have been growing in Vietnamese soil for centuries. Cooked by vendors who learned from their mothers, who learned from theirs. In a world obsessed with complicated vegan menus and 17-ingredient sauces, cơm chae just puts the best of what's fresh on a plate and lets the food speak. Under $2. Everywhere. Every single day. Dish number 6. Phở chae, the bowl that surprises every skeptic. Phở is Vietnam's most famous dish. The vegan version is its most underestimated secret. Every food traveler comes to Vietnam for phở bò, the rich, bone-deep beef broth that has been simmering in northern kitchens since the early 1900s. They assume the plant-based version is a compromise, a lesser bowl for people with restrictions. They are completely wrong. Phở chae starts with a vegetable broth built on charred ginger and onion, star anise, cinnamon, cloves, and roasted coriander seed. The same spice architecture as the original, minus the bones. Simmered low and slow until the broth turns amber, complex, and deeply fragrant. It doesn't taste like beef was removed. It tastes like something entirely its own. Silky flat rice noodles go in first. Then, crispy fried tofu, fresh bean sprouts, Thai basil, and a squeeze of lime that brightens everything in the bowl. Hoisin on the side. Chili sauce if you need it. This is the bowl that converts skeptics mid-bite. The one that makes people put down their chopsticks, look up, and say nothing for a full 10 seconds. In Hanoi, For Che stalls fill up on lunar observation days and stay full the rest of the month too. The broth doesn't lie. Dish number 5, Ban Sao Che, the sizzling crepe worth crossing town for. The name Ban Sao translates directly as sizzling cake. The sound it makes hitting the pan is half the experience. Most people know the meat version. Crispy, golden, folded around pork and shrimp. What they don't know is that the plant-based version, Ban Sao Che, hits just as hard and costs even less. The batter is rice flour, coconut milk, and turmeric, poured thin onto a scorching pan, spreading fast, crackling at the edges immediately. Bean sprouts go in while the batter is still wet, steaming inside the fold as the bottom blisters into a deep, fragrant gold. Mushrooms, julienne carrots, and fresh scallions pile in next. The filling simple, the texture anything but. The crepe comes off the pan folded in half, still sizzling, wrapped inside a leaf of mustard greens with fresh mint, Vietnamese perilla, and bean sprouts. Dipped into Nuoc Cham Che, a vegan dipping sauce of lime, chili, sugar, and water that cuts through every rich, oily, coconut-scented bite. This is Central Vietnam's greatest street contribution. Hoi An does it best. Locals eat it for lunch, for dinner, and for the kind of afternoon snack that turns into a full meal without warning. One crepe is never enough. The second one is never a question. Dish number 4, Goi Du Du, the green papaya salad locals actually eat. Green papaya is one of the most consumed vegetables in Southeast Asia. Most Western travelers have never tasted it in their lives. That is a problem worth fixing immediately. Goi Du Du is green papaya salad, and it is nothing like the fruit sitting in your hotel breakfast buffet. Unripe papaya is firm, almost crunchy, with a clean, neutral flavor that exists purely as a vehicle for everything around it. It gets shredded into long, thin ribbons. Tossed with shredded carrots, fresh mint, Vietnamese coriander, and roasted peanuts that add a deep, toasty crunch to every forkful. Then the dressing hits: lime juice, chili, garlic, and a touch of sugar. Sharp, bright, and aggressive in the best possible way. This is the salad Vietnamese locals eat at the beginning of a big meal to open the appetite, at the end of a heavy one to reset the stomach, and in between, simply because it tastes like the kind of food that makes your whole body feel better. No cooking required. No technique beyond a sharp knife and good instincts. In a cuisine famous for complex broths and layered flavors, Goi Du Du is Vietnam reminding you that sometimes the most honest food is also the best food. Fresh, fierce, and completely addictive. Dish number 3, Che, Vietnam's entire dessert universe in one bowl. Vietnam has over 100 varieties of Che. Every single one of them costs under $1 and will outlast any dessert trend the West ever invents. Che is not one dish, it is an entire universe. Sweet soup, pudding, layered drink, warm comfort bowl, cold afternoon fix. Che is all of these things depending on where you are, what season it is, and which vendor you trust. The base changes constantly. Mung bean, soft, earthy, cooked down into a thick golden paste and sweetened with rock sugar. Lotus seeds, delicate, slightly floral, floating in a clear broth that tastes like a Vietnamese grandmother's version of calm. Black-eyed peas, taro, pandan jelly cut into cubes, bright green and faintly grassy, layered over crushed ice and drowned in coconut milk so rich it coats the back of the spoon. In Saigon's heat, 35 degrees Celsius, 90% humidity, motorbikes everywhere, a cold bowl of Che Chui arrives like a rescue mission. Ripe banana, creamy coconut milk, chewy tapioca pearls, and a sprinkle of toasted sesame seeds that add a quiet, nutty finish to every spoonful. Street vendors sell it from glass cases on wheels, each layer visible, each color more vivid than the last. This isn't dessert, this is Vietnam showing off, and it has been showing off for centuries. Dish number 2. Ban Cuon Chai, steamed rice rolls at dawn. There is a dish in Vietnam that requires more skill to make than most professional kitchen techniques. It sells for under $1 on a street corner before 8 a.m. Ban Cuon Chai is steamed rice rolls, and the making of them is worth arriving early just to watch. A thin layer of rice flour batter is ladled onto a stretched cloth, pulled tight over a pot of boiling water. It steams in seconds, translucent, impossibly delicate, barely there. Then it gets lifted with a flat stick in one clean motion, laid flat and filled. Minced mushrooms. Wood ear fungus, chewy, dark, and deeply savory. A scattering of fragrant fried shallots that perfume the entire roll from the inside out. Rolled tight, cut into pieces, served in a shallow pool of vegan dipping sauce with fresh bean sprouts and a handful of Vietnamese herbs piled on the side. The texture is unlike anything else on this list. Silky, soft, almost dissolving on contact, with enough filling to give every bite something to hold on to. In Hanoi, Ban Cuon stalls set up before sunrise. The steam rises thick in the cool morning air at 20 degrees Celsius, mixing with the smell of fried shallots drifting down the hem. Most tourists are still asleep when locals are already on their second order. That gap in timing is the whole story. Dish number 1. The dish locals crave most, and tourists always miss. The most beloved vegan dish in Vietnam has no famous restaurant, no Michelin mention, no food influencer moment, just decades of loyal locals who never needed any of that. Cơm tấm chai, vegan broken rice, is the dish that built Saigon's street food identity. And the plant-based version is the one that proves Vietnamese cooking needs nothing from anyone. Broken rice gets its name from the fractured grains left behind during milling. The pieces too small and irregular for export, too perfect in texture to ever throw away. They cook faster than whole grains, absorb sauce more aggressively, and develop a slightly chewy bite that full grains never achieve. The plate arrives loaded. Crispy lemongrass tofu, golden on the outside, soft and fragrant at the center, glazed in a caramelized soy sauce that smells like every good decision you've ever made. Pickled daikon and carrots sharp enough to cut through every rich bite. A small pile of shredded scallion oil vegetables glistening under the afternoon light. A bowl of clear broth on the side. Simple, clean, there to reset the palate between bites. At 38 degrees Celsius in Saigon, sitting on a plastic stool in a hem alley with a plate of cơm tấm chai and a glass of café den, strong, bitter, poured over ice, this is not street food. This is the version of Vietnam that doesn't make it onto travel brochures because it doesn't need to. Tourists spend days chasing the famous dishes. Locals have been sitting down to this one every afternoon for generations, quietly, without ceremony, without explanation. Some food doesn't need a story, it just needs to be eaten. Where to find these dishes across Vietnam? Vietnam just handed you 10 reasons to rethink everything you thought you knew about vegan food. Every dish on this list has been feeding real people in real neighborhoods for generations. No marketing budget, no celebrity chef, no fusion twist designed for Western palates. Just centuries of Buddhist tradition, incredible ingredients, and a food culture so deep and confident it never needed anyone's approval. You won't find these dishes by following tourist maps. You find them by showing up early, following the steam, and sitting down wherever the locals already are. Look for the sign that says Cuon Chai, Vietnamese for plant-based eatery. Search Google Maps for Cuon Chai in any city and prepare to be overwhelmed by how many results appear. In Hanoi, the Old Quarter and Tay Ho neighborhood are loaded with An Chai stalls that come alive on lunar observation days. In Ho Chi Minh City, District 1 and District 3 have entire streets where plant-based food is the default, not the exception. The best meals on this list will cost you under $2. The best experiences will cost you nothing but the willingness to sit on a plastic stool at 7 a.m. with no idea what you ordered. That is exactly where the best food always lives. If this list made you hungry, made you book a flight, or made you finally understand what Vietnamese vegan food actually is, subscribe to Traveling and Eating. Passport to Flavor is just getting started. Vietnam has been feeding the world's best vegan food for 2,000 years. It just never told anyone. Now you know. 10 dishes, 0 compromise, all real. Subscribe to Traveling and Eating. Real street food, real places, 0 tourist traps across Southeast Asia every week. Passport to Flavor. The journey never stops.